Have you ever actually wondered what the real secret to success is? Think about it for a second. The most phenomenally successful people you know, are they always the absolute smartest people in the room? Or is there, some kind of invisible force at play here? It's a pretty wild thought, right? What if your raw technical ability, those hard skills you've spent literally years perfecting, actually play a completely minor role in how far you go? What if the actual battleground for success isn't about data or machinery at all, but entirely about human psychology? Welcome to Stilio. In today's explainer, we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in human relations. We're going to look at the core principles and some fantastic real-life examples from a text that pretty much fundamentally changed how we understand both professional and personal success. Okay, let's dive right into this. The text we're analyzing is, of course, Dale Carnegie's legendary How to Win Friends and Influence People. Published way back in 1936, this thing has sold over 30 million copies worldwide. It totally struck a nerve back in the post-Depression era, and honestly, it continues to be astonishingly relevant today. Why? Well, because while our technology changes at lightning speed, human nature absolutely does not. Get this, a staggering study by the Carnegie Institute of Technology looked at highly technical fields, like engineering, and they discovered that a mere 15% of a person's financial success is actually due to their technical knowledge. 15%. A massive 85% is due to skill in what they call human engineering. That's personality, leadership, and just the overall ability to interact with people. I mean, you could always hire technical ability, right? But the person who couples that with the ability to arouse genuine enthusiasm in others, those are the folks headed straight for the top. So we've broken Carnegie's insights down into 5 key pillars for you today: the psychology of success, the core fundamentals, making people like you, winning people over, and finally, a new way of life. All right, let's kick things off with pillar 1, the psychology of success, and really understanding behavior. The whole crucial point here is summarized perfectly by Henry Ford. He said, if there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. Now, that sounds incredibly simple, right? It sounds completely obvious. And yet, Carnegie notes that 90% of the people on this earth ignore this exact principle 90% of the time. We are just naturally totally obsessed with our own viewpoint. So consciously shifting that lens is the very first massive hurdle we have to clear. Moving right along to pillar 2, the core fundamentals. This is all about that foundational mindset. Think about it. When things go wrong, our natural human impulse is to instantly criticize, condemn, or complain. It's easy, and honestly, it feels pretty justified in the heat of the moment. But the Carnegie way demands the exact opposite. It requires us to actively suppress that knee-jerk reaction. Instead, we have to seek to understand, give honest appreciation, and arouse an eager want in the other person. It's really about recognizing that criticism just puts people straight on the defensive, whereas appreciation and understanding, those actually open doors. Okay, pillar 3, making people like you. Let's talk about some practical daily habits. The source outlines 6 very specific ways to pull this off. You need to become genuinely interested in other people. You need to smile more. You absolutely must remember their name. Be a good listener. Encourage them to talk about themselves. Talk in terms of their interests, and most importantly, make the other person feel important. And you have to do it sincerely. See, this isn't about manipulation at all. It's about authentic interest. When you genuinely care about someone else's story, believe me, they can feel it. And this perfectly illustrates exactly why those 6 steps work so well. As the philosopher William James pointed out, the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. I want you to notice that word right there, craving. It's not just a polite wish. It's a fundamental driving hunger that really differentiates us from animals. If you can become the person who sincerely feeds that craving in the people around you, you are basically going to work absolute magic. Let me share this really fantastic anecdote from the text to prove it. Consider Eunice, a cafeteria worker. There was this employee named Ken Nottingham who went through her line every single day. Now, to Eunice, who usually had a constant scowl on her face, Ken was just, another sandwich to make. She'd toss a single sad leaf of lettuce on the plate and hand it over. But one day, Ken actually noticed her name tag. He smiled, said, "Hello, Eunice," and then placed his order. Well, the result was instant. She completely ignored the food scale, piled on the ham, gave him like 3 leaves of lettuce, and just heaped on the potato chips. Literally, just by using her name, he acknowledged her unique identity. He made her feel important. And hey, this principle scales all the way up to billionaires too. Take Andrew Carnegie, the famous Steel King. When he was just a boy back in Scotland, he had a mother rabbit and a whole litter of babies, but he had absolutely nothing to feed them. So he told the neighborhood boys that if they went out and gathered food for the rabbits, he would name the bunnies in their honor. And guess what? It worked like an absolute charm. He remembered this profound little lesson about the power of names, and he used it to win cooperation everywhere, from the lunchroom all the way to the high-stakes corporate boardrooms later in life.
Which brings us to Pillar 4, winning people over, or the fine art of persuasion.
According to the text, the ultimate golden rule of influence is this. First, arouse in the other person an eager want. Look, the only real way to influence people is to talk in terms of what the other person wants, not what you want. Think about it for a second. You are very interested in what you want, but honestly, nobody else is. If you need someone to do something, you have to frame it entirely around how it benefits them, how it serves their goals, and aligns with their desires. As Carnegie points out, he who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scope of what mastering these skills can actually do for you. The source explicitly lists 8 things this knowledge helps you achieve. We're not just talking about making a few friends here. It's about getting out of a mental rut, increasing your prestige, handling complaints effortlessly, avoiding arguments entirely, and becoming a leader who arouses real, palpable enthusiasm. It is literally a complete toolkit for smoothing out every single human interaction you have.
And finally, Pillar 5, a new way of life. This is where we put it all into practice.
Carnegie actually quotes Bernard Shaw here, who said, "If you teach a man anything, he will never learn." Now, what he meant by that is that learning is an inherently active process. We only really learn by doing. Simply watching this explainer or passively reading the book, that's not going to change your life. You are attempting to forge brand new habits here, and you're actively overriding your natural human impulses. And that, my friends, requires action. So the source gives us some really practical steps to start building these habits. First, apply the rules at literally every single opportunity. Second, make a lively game out of it. Seriously, offer your spouse or a colleague $1 every time they catch you violating a principle, like if you catch yourself criticizing instead of appreciating. And third, keep a record of your triumphs. Jot down the dates, the names, and the actual results when you successfully use these techniques. It turns the whole learning process into this engaging, ongoing laboratory of human relationships. So I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question. How are you going to apply these principles in your very next conversation? I mean, are you going to give in to that natural impulse to just talk about yourself? Or will you use their name, show some genuine interest, and arouse an eager want? The secret to success is quite literally right there in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.